Hello, we are back with more news about COP29 here in Baku, Azerbaijan. Now I have distinguished guests coming from Pakistan, Sindh province, Mr. Murad Ali Shah, Chief Minister. Warm welcome to our program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. So why is it crucial for Pakistan to be represented at COP29, and how will the outcomes of this conference impact the country's climate strategy?
Pakistan has been involved with COP from the very beginning, and each year, because Pakistan is one of the most affected countries from climate change. We emit less than 1% of carbon emissions in the world, but we are the fifth most affected country in the world because of carbon emissions, because of climate change. And that is the reason that we've always had a very effective role in COPs, especially after the floods we had 2 years ago. Pakistan put up its case very strongly in COP. We were able to get the loss and damage facility available to Pakistan in COP27, I believe, 2 years ago. And last year also we participated, and our expectation this year is that the countries who are responsible for creating disasters because of climate change, because of carbon emissions, would participate in rebuilding a more resilient, climate resilient infrastructure in countries which are not responsible for this damage.
You mentioned flooding. Severe flooding actually has left millions of people affected, and this is obvious that climate change affects the environment in many ways. Could you please tell us a bit more about that case, how it affected the economy, the ecology, and how it also brings the intention to work more efficiently on the climate change agenda?
I'm from the southernmost district in Pakistan, so the entire water from the Himalayas flows down the rivers and it comes to Sindh by province. We've had floods before. I, as a young boy, remember the 1976 floods, which created havoc. Since then, we've had 3 or 4 major floods. But the problem is this, we've had long years of drought, and then suddenly one mega super flood. And this is what happened in 2022. Being the southernmost province, whenever there's a drought, and that is all climate related, whenever we have a drought, we suffer the most. And whenever there's a flood, all the water ends up in the province of Sindh and we suffer the most. In 2022, more than 2/3 of the province was underwater. The UN Secretary General had visited during that time, and he looked at the damage, looked at the situation with his own eyes, and he called it a flood of biblical proportions. He called it a monsoon on steroids. And the steroids were the carbon emissions which the developed countries are polluting the world with. And during those floods in the province of Sindh, more than 15 million people were rendered homeless. More than 2 million houses were completely damaged, demolished. We had a major challenge. We had to build back the roads. We had to build back hospitals, schools. That was it's not easy, but the easier part. What happened was that with 2 million people, 2 million households, almost 12 to 15 million people rendered homeless, we wanted to build houses for them. And we wanted to build houses which are climate resilient, so that, God forbid, if there's another catastrophe, another disaster, these houses can withhold that catastrophe. So we went to Geneva. A special conference on Pakistan floods was held in Geneva, co-partnered by the United Nations Secretary General and the government of Pakistan. There, our Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari made a passionate appeal, and after that appeal, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Islamic Development Bank came to help us, and something which was unimaginable, because as I told you, I've seen previous floods which were for a much lesser magnitude. Even then, we had not endeavored to build houses for people. But this time round, chairman of my party, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who was the foreign minister at that time, asked the government of Sindh that we need to build houses for them. And we started that campaign, and I'm very happy to tell you that we have got the funds available for building 2.1 million houses. 800,000, more than 800,000 houses are under construction. This is the largest housing project in the world. Prior to this, the rebuilding of a government of the entire housing. Prior to this, in Nepal, after the 2015 earthquake, they built 800,000 plus houses. We are going to build 2.1 million, and we've already crossed the Nepalese record. And these are, as I told you, climate resilient houses. What we're doing is we're building just one room which is above the highest flood level in these areas. So God forbid if there's a similar flood, they would not be rendered homeless, they would stay at their own house. Yes, there would be loss of livelihood, there'd be loss of other infrastructure, but at least they would not have to go live in camps, which they had to do. And that living in camps had other problems. We had several health issues during those floods. So as I told you, 15 million people were displaced. With this rebuilding, just to give you an example of the quantum, Azerbaijan's population is what, 12 or 13 million, I believe?
10.
10 million.
10 million.
Even.
Right.
So
Over 10 million.
Over 10 million. So we built 1.5 Azerbaijans in Pakistan, catered to that population. Again, these are not palaces that we built, very modest one-room houses, but this we've done, the government of Sindh has done, and I'm very grateful to the international community for helping us in this.
Mr. Minister, actually you raised a very important issue. You described the situation, the challenge which were faced by the province, and you say that many representatives of the international institutions, organizations, United Nations also came to Pakistan, to your province, to think on how to deal with the result of this climate change. But what's important today is to work together in order to prevail the same happening in the future. But sometimes geopolitical disagreements between the countries make them to think more about private things, domestic issues, more rather than to unite the efforts to move forward. And COP29 right. is a great platform to come together and to come up with ideas for the future, how to bring the changes which will benefit all humanity. What's your position? What's the stance of Pakistan in these particular issues, and how do you commend the position of some member states of the United Nations who still tries to create the borders rather than to diminish all of these barriers?
You made a very good point. We've created borders, but climate doesn't look at borders. Disasters don't recognize country borders. That is why it has to be a united effort for the entire world to fight this. And it's necessary, and Pakistan is trying to play its part, play its role in this. We in the province of Sindh and the government of Sindh are building, rebuilding or reforesting deforested forests. Over the years, we've cut trees, our mangroves, we have a very large coastline, and we've got sweet water coming into the delta, so we have got the largest mangroves in the world in Pakistan. They had been severely damaged over the years, so now we've got a program to rehabilitate the mangrove plantation. By doing this, what we've done is we are able to sell carbon credits also, and we've made, made revenues, and these revenues we are going to invest into climate resilient projects, planting more trees, making sure that people who've suffered because of this disaster, especially our coastal areas, they are compensated, and they are given more funds for fighting this menace that we, all of us, the entire world has created. So, as you said, COP29 or this forum in itself is a very effective forum to pass on messages to each other, to sensitize the developing world, the developed world, into the problems that the developing world or the third world is facing because of climate change and because of excessive carbon emissions. So you're absolutely right. We all have to work together, and this is a very good forum to do it.
How do you see the future potential for cooperation between Azerbaijan and Pakistan, especially when it comes to collaboration on the development of green energy transition?
Now, this is my first time in Azerbaijan, the first time in Baku. Actually, first day in Baku. I arrived early this morning.
Welcome to Baku.
Thank you very much. And what I've seen here is that you preserved, first of all, you preserved your country. At least what I've seen till now. The architecture has been preserved. You've got the old architecture in there. You've developed your country to become, a lot of Pakistanis come here. We've got very good relationship between Azerbaijan and Pakistan. You don't need a visa to go into each other's country. And a lot of Pakistanis are coming to Azerbaijan for tourism. And you've developed your tourist facilities. Pakistan has a similar, we've got a similar culture, we've got similar history. We've got the Mohenjo-daro civilization, which is more than 3,500 years old. So what we need to do is learn from Azerbaijan as to how they have developed their tourism industry. This is one place that we can get help from you. And as I said, by doing so, I'd like to invite Azeri tourism companies, private sector, to come into Pakistan and develop tourist sites in Pakistan, make profits from that, and also have the Azerbaijan, the people of Azerbaijan, come to Pakistan so that we have more people-to-people contact between Azerbaijan and Pakistani people.
And probably to work more on development of partnership and cooperation in this green energy sphere,
Absolutely.
Climate change.
Absolutely. We've got a huge potential because we are a hot country. We've got lots of sun. We've got lots of potential for solar energy in Pakistan. We've got potential for wind energy, especially in my province of Sindh. We have a corridor which can produce 50 to 60,000 megawatts of wind energy, and we've hardly exploited about 3,000 megawatts out of that. And by doing this, we can reduce carbon emissions for the entire world, and that's one other area where we can cooperate and make the world a better place for all of us.
Mr. Minister, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.